waiting to happen. So, okay, first point, and this is interesting, that, you know, the first point, we are all important. You know, sometimes we don't, it isn't stressed enough. Okay, you know, again, how are we judging importance in society? And sometimes people see themselves as less important or less valuable. Everyone has a role to play. Everyone has value. And it's so important that as a teacher, as someone who works with young people, my role is to extract and to enable a young person to achieve that value, unlock potential, and to become who they can potentially become as a real asset to society. Why I always like to begin with this is, and special and successful, because what's interesting is that, and I'll throw this out as a question as well, that for many people, they spend most of their lives doing things involved in work, study, that is not actually their passion, nor is it related to what I call their natural ability. For me, my natural ability is working with young people and talking about emotional issues. I feel that I have a natural ability to work in this, and that's why I believe I have a passion, and I have an energy related to this. But many people, especially when I'm doing counseling, for someone who's been in their career 20, 30 years, and then afterwards they come to me and they'll say that classic question: I'm unhappy, I'm unfulfilled, I hate my work, I hate my family, why is it my family don't like me, etc., etc. And when you analyze that individual, when you look at their life, you realize they spent all their life living for somebody else to achieve someone else's expectation, someone else's plan, and not their own plan. And in particular, what was their natural ability and passion, they did not develop. So, for example, many doctors, medical doctors that I work with, they've chosen to become doctors. Why? It's a high-status career. Their families wanted them to be doctors. Do you know the number of doctors who I meet who really wanted to be poets? So many. They are frustrated poets who are doing so. And personally, I don't want a doctor working with me who really should have done poetry. There's another thing about a lot of doctors. A lot of doctors do it because, again, it's a high-status job, not because they love human beings. I want a doctor who works with me who loves human beings and who loves to nurture humanity. That's the reason that that person did that job. They're passionate about human beings and about humanity, not because it's a high-status job. And so for that person, the simple advice that I will give that individual: go and find who you are, and what will really give you the energy and the passion that will make you fulfilled in your life. And as a result of that, you will attract to you a better relationship, a better partner, a better social network, a better, kind of physical environment, a better sense of well-being. Now, the critical question is that how many people are really prepared to make that change in their lives? Because one of the other things about human beings that I've noticed is that human beings hate to change. And we like the way, even though it's obvious our behavior is inappropriate or unacceptable. So we are all important, and I think that we are unique. You know, again, I suppose sometimes uniqueness from a philosophical point of view, again looking at Western diversity and compared to Eastern ideology, sometimes there's a sense that everyone needs to conform, everyone needs to comply. Uniqueness is a weakness. Uniqueness actually causes problems in society because everyone wants to have their own personal expression rather than everyone conform to the whole of what society should be. So, but you know, you are all unique. You know, the whole process of your socialization, the whole process of your development was something which was unique. And you are composed from lots of social, emotional, political, technological, parenting, theological, environmental. All of us are quite unique as individuals. So So I can't come here and give a one-size-fits-all solution. The solution is already within you, and it's within you recognizing your uniqueness and then moving forward from that. And I believe that everyone, I have my own work with lots of people from very different backgrounds. I work with a lot of young people in prison who are young people who have just made the wrong turn. And some of the analogies I give, one of the analogies I give is the crossroads. You know, when you're at a crossroads, there's two roads in front of you. One choice, another choice. Everyone here who ended up at university, I guarantee you, at some point in your life, especially in your teenage years, when you start to question, when you start to feel, okay, and form your identity and your personality starts to become much more concrete, more formal. You were at that crossroads. You were at a point, and you chose a series of actions that led you to this university and your career rather than away from this. Now, if you ask yourself, what was that factor there? What were the factors that resulted in you coming here? Whereas a young person that I work with, same as yourself, same brain cells, same number of brain cells, same capability, same potential, made decisions and had a thought process which led them to prison. And then when they're in prison, lead to further thought processes which keep them in prison, rather than get out. And when they come out, they repeat, they're recidivist. They repeat behavior which ends them back in prison. How is it? How is that, possible? And so this is the key thing. Well, the reality is everyone has potential and capability to achieve. Everyone does that. It's just our life opportunities. It's at those critical junctures, at points in our life, that we are either led one way or another way. And this is obviously playing out. Next slide, please. Okay. So let's kick off. What is emotional intelligence? Now, many of us have heard of IQ. Yeah. How many of you have heard of the thing, EQ, or emotional quotient, or emotional intelligence? How many, can you put your hands up? How many people have heard of emotional intelligence? Okay, that's good. That's a good group of people that have heard of it. And obviously you've got cognitive intelligence. Now, emotional intelligence, what's the interesting thing, okay, is that emotional intelligence is perhaps one of the most in-demand skills and attributes that they're out there in society. It's one of the most valuable things to have, even in the corporate world. In big corporations, someone who has that high level of emotional intelligence. It's very interesting. I meet highly intelligent people who are what I call very high levels of IQ, reasoning, mathematical skills, technological skills, amazing, geniuses. But when it comes to relationships, they're rubbish. When it comes to people, they don't know how to interact. So there's a lack in terms of the emotional side of that. And so this is, again, what we're talking about. So what is emotional intelligence? Emotional intelligence is the ability, to be aware of your emotions, how they affect your behavior, and being able to use this greater awareness in your relationships in your life. So it's being in tune with your emotional self and your psychological self, because you know that this is how I am feeling. And when a person, for example, is in control of their emotions in such a way, then the next thing is that they're able to, manage those emotions better. But more so than that, a person who has emotional intelligence, one of the real skills in emotional intelligence is the ability to understand other people and social situations. It's a brilliant skill to have, let me tell you. And it's something that can be developed, just like our intelligence quotient, IQ can be developed, so can our EQ be developed as well. The ability to, for example, pick up on micro gestures, the body language of an individual, the way that they interact, picking up that a person, for example, lacks self-esteem, picking up, in my casework over 20 years, picking up on the fact that someone's been a victim of child abuse. Picking up, and it's so interesting, many of the young people that I work with in prison, how did they end up in prison? And end up in a gang? And one of the critical things you'll see time and time again is because they didn't have a father figure in their life, and they were looking for a father figure. They're looking for a father to guide them, a If they find the wrong person, the wrong mentor, then that individual can guide them in the wrong direction, channel them in the wrong direction. It's a search for when their own father, a lot of young men, their own father has let them down, has been absent, hasn't been there as a role model for them, a search for that individual. Such a powerful thing. And because that individual doesn't get that male role model in their life, guess what? When they have children themselves, they repeat that same cycle of behavior. So that's what the critical thing about emotional intelligence is. It's really about, knowing your emotions, managing your own emotions. As a result of managing your own emotions, there's a sense of what I call motivating yourself. What that means is that basically this, that you are then able to energize yourself. You're able to, like I said, modify your behavior. So therefore, if you feel that you are becoming anxious and stressed, and you identify the indicators, you can be what we call proactive. And everyone in this room will recognize that prevention is better than cure. It's always better to prevent an acute psychological, mental health episode. Prevent it before it even happens. And an individual who's in control of their emotions, I always say, when someone has an anger management problem, and that's how they define it. It's actually a thinking problem. I'll come on to it in a minute. Well, they have an anger problem, and that anger problem has caused them to commit violence against their wife, beat her black and blue, and then afterwards you can say and turn around after he's beaten his wife up and the ambulance has come, and the person will say, it's not my fault, she made me do it. Doesn't take any responsibility at all. Is not prepared to accept responsibility for the action. And then when I'm talking to that individual, and I'm saying, and the person will say, you know what, she forced me to do it. She created this situation. I'm not responsible. I couldn't control myself. That's another thing I say. And what I often say to that person, and then the person will say, I have an anger problem. I can't help it. What I say to them is, no, you haven't got an anger problem, you've got a thinking problem. If Mike Tyson was in front of you, would you hit him? Would you hit him? And 9 out of 10 say, no, I wouldn't hit him. Because you wouldn't say, Mike Tyson made me do it. No, you're able to rationalize the situation. So you haven't got an anger problem, you've got a thinking problem. It's the same thing when someone needs alcohol or drugs or any other kind of addiction. They say, I've got a drinking problem. No, you haven't got a drinking problem. Your problem is that when you become frustrated, when you find that you are not identifying what your emotions, why your emotions are feeling this particular way, then you resort to that thing which takes away your responsibility. Alcohol, drugs, and any other kind, whether it's shopping addiction or sexual addiction. The same thing. It's not that it's a thinking problem that you have, an inability to take responsibility for your own emotions and manage your own emotions. And related to that, what's the other thing, the critical thing, so about managing your emotions, someone who has that can be motivated to change positively. I respect an individual. I don't respect the action they performed of violence, but when a person comes up to me and says to me, look, I am responsible. It is my fault. Can you help me break this cycle of violence? I respect an individual like that who asks for help. I don't respect the individual who denies that they have a problem and will always continue to deny they have the problem and will blame the world and everyone else and not take personal responsibility. This is also a cultural fact. This is also a cultural issue. Because in certain cultures, there is more resistance to accepting I have a problem and I have a weakness. Certain cultures, they find it very difficult to do. To ask for help and to get help from another person. It's seen as weak. It's seen as a stigma, that you've got a label that I can't cope, that I'm mad, I'm crazy, that I have to go to a psychiatrist, as the respected professor has mentioned, that you're something wrong with you. No. If you go to a psychiatrist or a psychologist or a counselor, there's something right with you. not something wrong with you. If you continue to suffer, there is something wrong with you, because you will damage yourself,